All right, we're back to 8.1 part 2. So I can solve percent problems using equations. We're going to see some more equations today. 2 warm-up questions from 8.1 part 1. 28 is 66% of what number? So we have to remember that usually is means equals and of means multiplication. So 28 is, we have 66%. We want to change that to a decimal. So move over the decimal twice to the left. So 0.66. And then of what number? So that means times unknown number. So I'm going to use x. Goal is to get x by itself. So we're going to divide both sides by 0.66. And then in my calculator, 28 divided by 0.66, we get 42.4242, and so on. We're going to round to the nearest hundredth, which is that 2. The 4 tells me to keep the same, so our answer is 42.42. Okay, next one. This has a star next to it, and if you watched the video yesterday, you may notice that it says what percent. This one's kind of special. So what percent of 8 is 5? So we don't know the percent. Times 8 is 5. To get p by itself, we're going to divide both sides by 8. So we get capital P equals, we're going to do 5 divided by 8, and we get 0.625, so P equals 0.625. But remember, it says what percent, so we need to change this decimal to a percent by multiplying by 100 or moving the decimal to the right twice. So our percent is actually 62.5%. Okay. So using that idea, let's see what we're doing today. There are other ways to solve percent problems, like using a proportion. But using an equation is usually the best practice. Usually the best because it's fastest and easier most of the time. Besides, using equations gives us a chance to practice the equation solving techniques that will be used in every math class you will ever take. So for today's problems, we'll need to think about how to write the equation from the context of the problem. So we're going to see some story problems that you may have encountered before. So solve the problems. You'll need to think about what number goes into these problems. Hint, if there is a percent in the problem, it goes where the percent sign is. So our first example, 3A. So far, this season, the ERMS girls basketball team has won 7 of their 9 games. What percent have they won? So we kind of could think about it in a couple different ways. First, what don't we know? What percent have they won? We don't know the percent, so right away I'm going to put a P where that percent symbol is. Now we need to figure out where to put the 7 and where to put the 9. We know 7 of their 9 games. What percent have they won? So we're trying to find the percent of the total. So usually, most of the time, the total goes here. So they played 9 total games, and 7 they won. So 7 is what percent of 9? So now let's make an equation out of that. 7 equals percent times 9. We want to get P by itself, so we're going to divide both sides by 9. 7 divided by 9, you might remember your rational numbers, is 0.7 repeating. So P equals 0.7777. I'm just going to write it like that. Now we need to know the percent. This is a decimal right now. To change it to a percent, you multiply by 100, remove the decimal over twice. So the percent is 77.78 because it kept going sevens and we're rounding to the nearest hundredth. So here is the percentage of their wins. Let's look at the next one. In a survey of 1,050 students at ERMS, 56% said they had a smartphone. How many students have a smartphone? So right away, I know that 56% goes in the 56% spot. Now I have the number 1,050, and then I have a missing number. Like with the last example, the total is going to go in this of space. So there are 1,050 students, and we're trying to figure out what number is 56% of 1,050. So once you have this set up, it should be pretty okay to write an equation. X is 56%. We need to change that to a decimal. So 56% is 0.56 times 1,050. All right, getting the calculator. 0.56 times 1,050. We get 588. So x equals 588. This is a word problem, so we need to say 588 students. So 588 students have a smartphone. All right, next one. Jamie got 35 questions correct on the math test and scored 79.54%. How many questions were on the test? We want to know the total questions on the test. So a few ways you could think about it. Like I said, an easy way is to fill in that percent right away. I saw the 79.54%. Now we have to think about, where does our variable go? Where does the 35 go? Like in the last two examples, the total goes in this of space because we want to know what 79.54% of the total. We don't know how many questions are total on the test, so we're going to say X. We don't know. And then that 35 goes on the other side of the is. You can check that by saying, yeah, I want to know what 35 is 79.54% of what? We want to know the total. So let's make an equation. 35 equals, we need to make this to a decimal, so move the decimal twice to the left. So 0.7954 times x. We want to get x by itself, so we're going to divide both sides by 0.7954. And let's see how many questions were on the test. 35 divided by 0.7954. We get 44.00301. Well, that is such a small decimal, so we're going to say that there were 44. 44 problems total. Okay, let's look at the next one. This one doesn't have it quite set up for us, but we can still use that same setup. Amy earned $68,000 this year. This is 136% of what she earned last year. How much did she earn last year? So, I also see the word is, and this is in front of it. So a way for us to think of this is she earned $68,000 this year. This is talking about that 68 So $68,000 is 136% of last year. Let's try to make an equation of this. Well, we already have the 68,000 equals 136%. Move the decimal over twice to make it the decimal point over twice to make it a decimal number. So 136% is actually 1.36 as a decimal. And then of last year. We don't know last year's amount, so we're going to use x. It's 1.36 times x. To get x by itself, we're going to divide by 1.36. So we're going to type in $68,000 divided by 1.36, and we get $50,000 as our x. So that means last year Amy earned $50,000. So some thought questions for this lesson. Why do we use percents? Hint, it's the same reason we use unit rates. Maybe you remember, it's to make comparisons easy. We'll kind of see that in the next question. Would you rather get 17 out of 20 on an assignment or 30 out of 36 on an assignment? Well, you do this every single day. You calculate your assignment percentage. So let's first figure out what your percent would be if you got 17 out of 20. So 17 divided by 20 is 0.85. And then, to change that to a percent, you move it over twice or multiply by 100, so it would be 85% if you got 17 out of 20. Now let's do 30 out of 36. So 30 divided by 36, and we get 0.83 repeating, so that is 0.83. We want to make that into a percent, so multiply by 100, and that would be 83%. I don't know about you, but I would rather get this 17 out of 20 because 85% is higher than 83%. Okay, last question to think about. 3 out of 8 is what percent? So you have to be careful. This is an exception to what of usually means. Notice the word out before of. 3 out of 8. Well, that could sound like an assignment. You got 3 out of 8 correct. So instead of saying 3 times 8, this is actually saying 3 over 8. 3 out of 8. So think of it like an assignment. Let's find the percent. 3 divided by 8 is 0.375. Oh, sorry, equals P. Because we want to know the percent. So 0.375. It's a decimal right now. We want to change it to a percent. So the percent would be 37.5. So you have to be careful and know what out of means. That's why we said of usually means multiplication, but you need to be careful and really understand what the question is asking and telling you. Okay, assess yourself, and we just finished up 8.1. Good luck on the assignment.